Right now on NewsNation, new audio of President Trump calling Georgia's Secretary of State, insisting he investigate fraud claims and find votes cast for the president that would overturn the results of the election in Georgia.
The Washington Post first published the recording of that phone call in its entirety. Here is part of that conversation.
All I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, because we won the state. So tell me, Brad, what are we going to do? We won the election, and it's not fair to take it away from us like this. And it's going to be very costly in many ways. And I think you have to say that you're going to re-examine it, and you can re-examine it, but re-examine it with people that want to find answers, not people that don't want to find answers.
Over the course of the conversation, Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger rejected the president's claims that the state's results were inaccurate. President-elect Joe Biden won Georgia by more than 11,000 votes. President Trump was also making his case on Twitter today. He accused officials in some swing states of making up election laws, which he called unconstitutional. Twitter flagged the tweet as disputed.
Tonight, members of Congress are reacting to this new audio recording. NewsNation Washington, D.C. correspondent Joe Khalil is live with the story. Joe, good evening.
Yeah, as you can imagine, a lot of reaction here in Washington, and they're reacting to the same thing the rest of the country is reacting to. Very specifically, that one line in that recording that you guys just played, where the president says, all I want to do is find 11,780 votes. That is obviously the margin that Joe Biden won the state of Georgia by, which the president says, and that he believes he won. Of course, as you mentioned, the Georgia elections officials dispute that. They say the evidence is not on the president's side. So we're going to try to boil this call down, because it was about an hour, and I got about 3 minutes here to explain it. But essentially what you heard on that call throughout, the whole thing was the president again and again bringing up a number of different examples of things he says happened in Georgia, all of which would be voter fraud. And I'm not going to, by my count, it was 9 different examples. I'm not going to list all of them, but he was saying things like the voting machines were changing votes, that ballots were being thrown out, that military ballots were being changed. So there were a number of these allegations, and time and again, the Georgia elections officials would tell the president that his information was simply inaccurate and that the facts were not on his side. So you heard the president. We're going to play a little bit of that phone call from the other side, from Ryan Germany. This is the counselor for the Secretary of State in Georgia.
Tell you what we are seeing.
Go ahead. Good.
What we're seeing is not at all what you're describing.
Okay.
And these are investigators from our office. These are investigators from GBI, and they're looking, and they're good, and that's not what they're seeing.
So we talked to a lot of lawmakers here on Capitol Hill, and as you can imagine, the Democrats that we spoke with were angry, frankly. They were frustrated. And if you talk to them, they say this was very clearly an effort by the president to put pressure on an election official to overturn an election result. Now, frankly, we also tried to talk to a number of Republicans about this, and most of them told us that they hadn't heard the recording. They didn't want to comment until they did hear it. But we did get a chance to talk to Dan Muser. He's a Republican from Pennsylvania. You're going to hear him second, and first you're going to hear Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz from Florida. So here's both of their reactions today, a Democrat first, then a Republican, to what they heard.
There's just nothing short of treason when you have the President of the United States trying to pressure a Secretary of State of one of our 50 United States into throwing out the results of the presidential election in order to try to install himself for an office that he was not elected.
We actually had a conversation with him last night. It's always been about voter integrity. It's always been about an honest count. Only count the legal ballots, don't count the illegal ballots. President, never have I got an indication that he's looking to overturn anything, just have a fair and accurate count.
So we know there are a number of Republican lawmakers that are planning to challenge the election results from the state of Georgia, along with a number of other states. The rhetoric on both sides of the aisle here has been very heated, so expect this phone call and all of the fallout from it to only increase the rhetoric there, and that's what we expect in the next couple of days as we head into that crucial day this week when Congress is going to be asked to certify all of the state's electoral college votes. Reporting live tonight in the Capitol, Joe Khalil, NewsNation.